We're just going to wait a couple more minutes until a couple more people show up. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending our Client Success Training webinar today, hosted by LEAP's Client Success team. At our webinar today, we are joined by Christine Kim from LawY. Whether you're already a LawY expert or would like to learn more about the functionalities, this webinar will show you strategies and features to maximize efficiency. Before we get started, let's go through a couple of final initial housekeeping items. Today's training session will run for approximately 45 minutes in listen-only mode. We welcome all participants to enter questions into the chat window as they arise. And if we do not answer them during the presentation, we have allotted some time at the end to address them. A recording of the session will be made available after the presentation, and will be emailed to all registrants. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Christine.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so my name is Christine Kim, and I'm a lawyer at LawY. Before joining LawY, I was in private practice for 10 years. I understand firsthand how demanding it can be to manage a legal practice, from balancing client demands, deadlines, administrative work, and the constant pressure to work efficiently while still delivering high-quality legal services. This is why LawY can make a meaningful difference in your day-to-day practice. So this session will focus on sharing practical strategies that will help you seamlessly weave LawY into your daily work. So I'm first going to start off by providing a quick overview of LawY and what makes it unique. And then I'll show you a live demo of LawY and show you some types of questions that you can ask LawY to save you hours of time. And then I'll also go over some risk mitigation tips to drive smooth team adoption of AI. And then, of course, happy to answer any questions that you have. So let's first touch on how LawY works and why it's safe to use. LawY uses a large language model, or LLM, to process your legal questions and generate instant AI answers. LawY goes beyond your typical AI-generated responses to make our platform purpose-built for lawyers. So we ensure that all AI answers are tailored to your province and matter type with linked resources. And we also have a real human lawyer in the loop, meaning that you can submit any AI answer for verification. And an experienced local lawyer will then review the AI answer for accuracy and make changes where needed. Submitting for verification is free and it's included within your LEAP subscription, so I would encourage you to leverage this feature. These human verified answers then contribute to our ever expanding legal knowledge base. So the verified answers strengthen the accuracy of future AI answers. Our operational team is largely made up of lawyers, so you can be assured that our priority is offering an AI assistant that is useful for lawyers and prioritizing privacy and security. We don't use your input to train AI models, ensuring that your client's sensitive information stays secure and ring-fenced. If you would like more information regarding our privacy and security features, you can visit our Trust Center at trust.lawY.ai. You can see the link here on the screen. So LawY has become the trusted AI legal research assistant, which is currently being used by over 70,000 lawyers across 9 countries with over 3 million questions asked so far. In Canada, LawY is available in Ontario, BC, Alberta, and Manitoba in all practice areas. So now that we've covered the essentials of how LawY works, I'll show you a quick demo. So for those who are new to LawY, accessing LawY is very simple. You just need to open any matter in LEAP. I'm just going to click out and share my LEAP screen here. So if you open any matter in LEAP, in the correspondence pane up here, you'll see the Research AI LawY button. So you would click on that to access LawY. Just going to share my LawY screen. So here is the LawY interface. You can also access LawY online. You would just need to go to app, so app.lawY.ai, and then you would click on the sign in with LEAP button, which is at the bottom of the page. And then that would log you into the LawY interface online without any preset matter type or jurisdiction. So on this screen here, because I accessed LawY through an Alberta criminal law matter, it's already been set to Alberta criminal law. We do recommend as a tip not to ask questions under practice management because that's a more generic matter type. Instead, ask questions under a substantive matter such as criminal, family, wills and estates so that you get the most tailored AI answers. And also, if you submit the AI answer for verification, it will go to our appropriate experienced verifier in that substantive practice area. Another way that you can ask questions is you can create any matter type from a different province. So let's say you have a question that you'd like to ask in a different province and practice area. You can simply click on the new button and then click on new matter. Then you can select which region you want to ask the question in. So let's say I have a question in BC. You can select which practice area you'd like to ask the question in. So let's say I have a question about estate administration. Then you can name it anything that's easy to remember. So let's say BC Estate Admin. If you click Create Matter, now you can see that it's been changed to BC Estate Administration. So you can start asking questions in that practice area. So this allows you to quickly create essentially dummy matters in LawY without having to create a whole new matter in LEAP. All right, so for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to walk you through a day in the life of an Ontario estates lawyer, just so that you can see how LawY can fit into a realistic workflow. So I'm just going to change my matter type to Ontario estate. So let's say you arrive at the office in the morning, and before you can even get to your to-do list, you're looking at a client email who has emailed last night, and you want to respond to that email quickly before moving on to what you need to do. So a client email saying that their parent has passed away, that there might be multiple wills, and one sibling is refusing to cooperate. So I want to instruct LawY to draft a compassionate initial response email to this potential estate trustee in Ontario explaining next steps after a death and to schedule a phone call. So LawY can quickly draft correspondence for you. It's especially handy when you need to quickly respond to a client, but you don't want to spend 20 minutes drafting an email. We know that clients don't like to have lawyers billing high costs for drafting emails. So this is a way to quickly get an email out to them, just acknowledging that you've seen their email and scheduling next steps. So of course, this is a first draft, so you are meant to review it and tweak it, adjust the tone if necessary, but starting from a draft will definitely give you a jump start to that. Now let's say that you're preparing for an intake call with the client. So you're meeting with a surviving spouse who's concerned about probate and jointly held assets, and you want a quick refresher before the call. So LawY can certainly help you with that. You're asking LawY, what assets typically pass outside the estate in Ontario? So another great way to use LawY is to get a quick refresher on a topic, quickly double check your understanding on a topic or a legal issue when you're preparing for a call or a meeting. This way you don't have to do a manual search online. You can get that right from LawY. So you can see here that it's giving you an overview about assets that pass outside of Ontario. It's talking about joint assets, life insurance with the named beneficiary, registered plans, etc. And a new feature that I wanted to point out to you is that for those that have previously used LawY in the past, you likely know that we used to have a resources section that was typically displayed at the end of a response, but we found that sometimes it wouldn't give a complete picture and it did take additional time to generate. So we replaced that resources section with something more useful, which is our inline citations. So now you can see exactly which source supports each point that you read. So if I click on this source right here, it will open up the source in the right pane here. And in this case, you can see that it's actually a verified answer that LawY is drawing upon this information. So you get the benefit of reviewing a response that one of our verifiers has already reviewed for accuracy, and you don't need to wait for that verified answer. And in this situation, there's probably more verified answers being cited because the question that I asked is a common question that previous users have asked LawY. So you can review that here. There's also linked resources at the end of that. A couple features that I also wanted to point out at the end of each AI response, if I scroll down to the bottom, is that you can copy this response by clicking on this clipboard button. So if you click on that, you would click on the copy message button, which would copy that AI response for you automatically. And then you just need to paste it into whatever document or email you want to paste the answer to. If you click on the start button here, Ask AI, there's a couple of additional features here. Let's say you find the AI answer is too lengthy. You can ask to make it shorter. You can ask to remove any personal information if it happened to be in the answer. You can ask it to improve writing, fix spelling and grammar, or even translate into a number of different languages. We also have our feedback button here, which we encourage you to use, a thumbs up or a thumbs down button, so that that will help us to improve the quality. Now, let's say for this intake meeting, you want a LawY to help you prepare for it by generating some intake questions. So I've asked it to generate just 7 key intake questions so that the answer will generate faster. Obviously, you can ask it to generate a certain number, or you can ask it to just generate key intake questions, and it will provide you with a list. But this is just another handy way, again, to prep for meetings and calls. You can ask LawY to help you generate key questions. So you can simply just copy and print this out to take with you to the meeting. Actually, another feature that I wanted to point out to you, at the bottom here, you'll notice that there's also suggestive follow-up questions. So feel free to click on any of these suggested questions if they're relevant to your search. If you click on it, it will just generate that question automatically for you and then another AI response. All right, so now let's say it's the afternoon and your next task that you want to deal with is interpreting a difficult will clause. So let's say there's a homemade will that was made, but there's a clause with regards to distributing a cottage, which is very difficult to interpret. So you want LawY's assistance on that. What I would do is I would copy and paste the will clause into the question box. So when you copy and paste a large amount of text into the question box, it will turn the text automatically into an attachment, as you can see here. So if I click on this paperclip, it will open up the attachment, or it will open up the text so that you can review it if you want. You can edit it if you want. So this is the will clause that I want LawY to help me interpret. Now, to give you the example, I've included the children's names here. So Amy Smith, Bob Smith, Caitlin Smith, but we do encourage users not to include personally identifiable information in the question. So if you do accidentally copy and paste that information, there's an easy way to remove that. I would just click on the remove PII button here. And then you can see that it's actually now replaced the children's names with placeholders. And then if I click Save Changes and then exit, now the changes will be saved here. And now I want to instruct LawY to identify the ambiguity issues in this will. So again, I've just limited it to 5 for the purposes of saving time and accelerating the response, but obviously, you can say identify all the ambiguous issues in this homemade will clause. Whatever practice area you're practicing in, any clause, any document that you'd like LawY to assist you on interpreting, analyzing, you just need to copy and paste that, and you can get LawY to give you feedback on that. So you can see here that it's identified some ambiguous issues with the clause about ownership structure, wishes versus making it legally binding. So it gives you another pair of eyes looking at that. And then I'm just going to follow up this question now with a research question. So now I want LawY to help me with case law research by finding recent Ontario cases with county links that deal with cottage property in a will. So we know that case law research can eat up a lot of time for lawyers. And again, it's another task that clients don't want to be spending high costs on for lawyers to be doing case law research. So you can save hours of research by using LawY as your starting point. You can also include parameters in your question to filter your search. So whether it's cases that you want in the last 5 years, whether it's cases that you want just in the Superior Court or appellate decisions, feel free to include parameters to get a more tailored result. So you can see here that it's found some cases with some brief summaries on the topic. Now, another way that you can organize this information is to ask LawY to compare the cases that they just found by providing a table comparing the court's analysis and decisions. So again, just making the analysis even more efficient for you by LawY organizing the information so that you can quickly identify how the courts have analyzed key issues across multiple decisions. And so when it's presented in a table, it will help you spot the trends and distinctions more efficiently. You can see here it's organizing a table. And lawyers who are using AI in this way, speeding up their case law research, clients notice this and they're valuing lawyers who can leverage AI to streamline case law research and reduce unnecessary research time. Because of course, hours that you spend saving on case law research, you can devote that time to developing more rapport with your clients, focusing on advocacy and strategy, which is what clients really remember. So super handy table. Now, of course, we always remind lawyers that even when you're doing case law research with AI, at the end of the day, you still have to do your own due diligence, make sure all the information is accurate, review the cases firsthand to make sure that they are relevant and on point. But this just allows you to quickly decipher which cases you do want to go into deeper research with. All right, so let's say your last task of the afternoon is just revising and finalizing an affidavit that you've drafted. So I'm going to copy and paste a draft affidavit here. And I'm going to ask LawY to assess the affidavit and identify its main strengths and weaknesses. I've given it some context that this is a dispute between the beneficiaries and the estate trustee. Following the death of a parent, I represent the applicant beneficiary who believes the estate trustee has mismanaged the estate assets. So again, what used to be, if you wanted somebody to be looking at your drafts and giving you feedback, you'd have to either ask a colleague or a senior lawyer. Now you can just ask LawY to help you with that. And the advantage is that you get feedback very quickly, and you can ask it at any time of the day. You don't have to be worried about interrupting another lawyer's schedule for feedback on your drafts. All right, so the next feature that I wanted to show you is our deep research and human verification feature, which is at the top right in the orange button here. So if you want to go into more depth or you want some extra assurance about the AI answers from one of our legal verifiers, you can proceed with in-depth research plus human verification. So when you click on that button, first, it will generate a list of all the substantive questions from your conversation. So it won't list any drafting questions because we've determined that drafting is really not appropriate for deep research because only the user that really knows their file inside and out can confirm the accuracy of their draft. But for any substantive legal questions, it should be generating it here. Now, if for some reason it's not listed here, you can add your own question by typing your question here. So I'm just going to select that first question that I want to do deep research on. You can also select whether or not you want to submit that for verification. So I can toggle yes for that. And then if I click next, now if there are any relevant conversation details, they would be listed here. So for example, let's say in my conversation, I included, the ages of the parties, and that's a relevant fact that I want LawY to consider. In this deep research answer, it would be retrieved here. And then once you click submit, the deep research answer will be generated. It usually takes about 15 to 30 minutes for the deep research answer to be generated. And how it differs from the instant AI answer that you received is that it's going to be a much more comprehensive and in-depth answer to your question. So once the deep research answer is available, you would just see it by clicking on the deep research tab on the left, and it would be listed here. Same with any verified answers. Once they're available, they would be listed here. So I hope this demo gave you some ideas of different types of questions that you can ask LawY. I'm just going to switch back to my PowerPoint slides so that I can go over some tips. So here are some risk mitigation tips that we recommend. So for anyone who is a new user of LawY, you can definitely start off with more low risk tasks such as drafting emails, memos, summaries, and checklists just to get your feet wet with LawY. Just think about how much time you spend drafting correspondence and how LawY can speed up that work for you if you ask LawY to produce first drafts. It's also important to set clear human in the loop rules. So, we have to remember that the AI is meant to be your assistant, but it's not the decision maker. So all responses that you get from LawY are meant to be draft only. And it's about accelerating your work, but not replacing your due diligence and your judgment on the file, because only you know the file inside and out. It's meant to assist you with thinking. It's meant to assist you with strategy, but of course you make the final call. The user still remains responsible for the accuracy, judgment, and final filing of whatever content that you do use. Even with our verified responses, this is a feature that we offer to our users so that you get the benefit of getting, insight and information from experienced senior lawyers that are on our panel. But even with the verified answer, the user still does need to double check all of the content in that response. And of course, the quality of your prompts will dictate the quality of the responses that you get. So sometimes we do see users asking very vague questions, like their question might only be 3 or 4 words. And if your question is very vague, the answer that you'll get is likely going to be very generalized and not as tailored. So we do recommend just testing LawY out with with follow-up questions. If the first answer that you get isn't what you're looking for, don't get discouraged. Just ask a follow-up question with clarifying information, with clarifying instructions, and expect that you do need to kind of go back and forth with LawY as you would with any AI tool to get the answer that you're looking for. But even if you are going back and forth with LawY, you're still saving a lot of time by using it, because as you saw from the demo, the answers get produced very quickly. So a tip is, make sure you specify the task type. So what are you asking LawY to do? Are you asking LawY to draft something, summarize something, analyze something? So make sure you're providing those instructions. Provide any relevant context that's important for LawY to consider in its response. And we do have a guide online, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, with some sample questions. So feel free to take a look at that to give you some ideas on what sorts of questions you can ask LawY. I also wanted to briefly mention our verifier opportunities. So we are still looking for verifiers in certain provinces and practice areas. Now, in order to become a verifier, we are looking for experienced lawyers. So lawyers that have at least 5 years of post-call experience. And if you enjoy research and writing, you're interested on keeping up with what's happening in the AI space, feel free to scan the QR QR code that you see on the screen here to register your interest, and we can reach out to you. We are particularly looking for verifiers in Alberta and Manitoba, but there are still openings in Ontario and BC as well as in certain practice areas. So feel free to register your interest there. All right, so that concludes what I wanted to cover in this webinar. If anyone has questions, we can certainly answer questions.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here as well. Okay, thank you so much, Christine, and thanks once again to everyone joining us. We'll now open up our live Q&A. If you have any questions that were unanswered today, please still add them into the chat and we will get back to you with an email response shortly, or if we can, we'll try and answer them during the end of the session right now. I'd also like to note that there are a few feedback survey questions that will pop up after the close of this webinar that we appreciate if you fill out so we can continue to improve our client success training sessions in the future. So I'm just going to wait and just check the chats just to see if we have any questions come through. We'll wait a couple minutes. I don't see anything at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any questions. There we go. We do have one from Stefano.
Okay.
Does LawY use ChatGPT or Claude as its engine? Sorry if this was already explained.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So LawY uses a number of different LLMs, and right now we have enterprise accounts with mainly OpenAI and Google Gemini. So those are the two main LLMs that we use. But LawY is an agnostic model. So if there's a better LLM out there, we have our own proprietary evaluator where we're constantly testing out the latest LLMs to see if there's a better LLM for the relevant task.
Thanks, Christine. Let's see if there's any more that'll come through.
I guess just following up on that, another common question that we do get is, how is LawY different from an AI tool such as ChatGPT? And so I just wanted to touch on that to say that because LawY has enterprise accounts with LLM providers, it's different from using the consumer version because we have different protocols in place through our enterprise accounts. So one important policy that we have with these LLM providers is a zero data retention policy, meaning that any information or question that gets fed through the LLM is not retained by the AI provider. So that's one of our security features for our users.
Okay, I'm just waiting to see if there's any more questions that come through. We'll wait another minute or so, and then we will just end the webinar.
We do have a FAQ section in our Trust Center, so I would encourage anyone who is interested in learning more about LawY's privacy and security features, you can check out that FAQ section because that will contain a list of our commonly asked questions.
Perfect. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so I think we're going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your participation, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.